and it's Ben here at Bates Nursery. We've had a couple serious talks the past month about planting and watering and maintenance, and today we're going to take kind of a little bit of a left turn and talk about plants with thorns. So this is kind of a niche topic, and you know, some people spend their life avoiding these plants in their gardens, and some people embrace them. So I'm definitely have a small passion for plants that are on the fringe of what we see as a nice, livable landscape. And I think a lot of these plants have some good uses in our gardens. So yeah, today's topic, pokey plants. And hopefully these are not slow growing pokey plants. A lot of them can be really vigorous. And, you know, we're just going to kind of look at what you could use them for in your garden, or just kind of marvel at really how nasty some of these plants can be. I've really focused on plants that'll be hardy outdoors here. Of course, you can come in and talk to our folks about indoor tropical plants if you want some cactus in your house. Those are definitely tons of options with tons of nasty prickers. And, you know, excuse me today, guys, I will probably get stuck a few times. And, you know, it happens out here. They make leather gloves and things like that if I want to protect you, but definitely handle with care. And I'm just going to kind of go through some of these plants. Let me know if y'all have any questions. You know, you could really do a deep dive and look at why these plants have thorns. Probably not going to do that today, but a lot of these have evolved to discourage animals from eating on them, and that's really the main purpose of some of these thorns. So when we're talking deer resistance, I mean, really all these plants would be considered deer resistant. So these pokers, you know, no animal wants to put their mouth around it to eat it, and, you know, naturally these are going to be left alone with deer. I had about 8 deer in my yard this morning trying to munch on my plants. So definitely good consideration for a garden. A lot of these are great considerations for prairie and desert gardens as well. So I'm going to mention the first one, which is actually not a pokey plant, but it's got a pokey name. So I figured I had to bring it. We've got some Gnophofia starting to bloom, also known as hot poker, and it is so showy. And you can see why it's called hot poker. I mean, these also come in some really deep red varieties. They kind of look like the colors of a mango popsicle. But wonderful plants, Gnophofia, hot poker, actually not sharp despite the name. So I figured I'd start with one that is not going to hurt me this morning. Hot poker, awesome for full sun to part shade, dry beds. It doesn't really mind it. And they're pretty prolific bloomers. For about 2 months, you can cut the old heads and clean them up a little bit, and then they'll just be green the rest of the year like a bulb or a lily or something like that. Kind of a cool alternative to daylily. So yeah, that's hot poker. Don't let the name discourage you. This will not hurt you, but it does kind of look like hot poker that you put in the fire. So hot poker, got a bunch of these in. Really showy, really good buy right now. I'll put her over there. And I'm just going to kind of dive into some desert plants, which most people are very familiar with. Desert plants being real pokey, whether you're on the West Coast or down in Florida. There's a lot of these really pokey plants, just like prickly pear, which generally prickly pear is hardy here. You may need to make sure the environment, I got a thorn in me there. You may need to make sure your environment is on the dry side. But prickly pear can do pretty well. In fact, once it gets going, it can spread pretty vigorously. I mean, it can be almost hard to eradicate in a nice spot. But this is Baby Rita. We'll actually keep this in our garden center, but you can grow it outside. Baby Rita is a low-growing one. I mean, just look how cute it is and how full of thorns this guy is. There are thornless prickly pears, but I will say the ones with thorns seem to grow better around here. These will produce a really pretty flower. Could probably turn it with the tag there for y'all. But this does produce a pretty flower. a pretty pink flower. It will produce a fruit. I don't know if it would be a pear on this one that you'd be eating, but you can get, and we will carry just straight prickly pear that will produce an edible fruit. If you're into that kind of thing, it's a tough fruit to process. But yeah, prickly pear, if you have a sunny, dry bed, rock garden, something like that, these are really cool. It'll make you feel like you're in South Texas or the Midwest. Cool little plant. This is Baby Rita. Awesome, cute little name. And on the same vein of something that, it's not always hardy here, but given the right spot, this is agave, so you tequila lovers out there will probably notice it. This is a blue agave, which is one of the ones that can be hardy here. Again, full sun, dry, and these things have nasty hooks on them that are like almost like a fish hook. Really, they don't come out, they don't get in your skin, but pretty nasty plant. Really neat growth pattern on these, like a grass, and they get the remnants of the leaves kind of striping them. But yeah, this is blue agave. Sorry if I said yucca. Agave, again, the same agave that tequila comes from. You can successfully grow these. I might put it in like a terracotta pot outside and then maybe move it in the winter just to keep it. But yeah, that's agave, a hardy agave for us. And then on the same desert theme here, I have yucca. Now this is beaked yucca going with the pokey theme. And these yucca are really cool textural plants. I think they're gaining popularity for containers and really modern garden beds. Yeah, this is Sapphire Skies. There is one called Adam's Needle, so they definitely have that kind of pokey connotation. And what it is the tips of each of these grass-like fronds have, really a sharp little needle. And if you come at these the wrong way, they will get you. And, if you go against the grain, these things will poke you and make you yelp. This one's not as bad. This is kind of a soft yucca. It does kind of have like a razor blade leaf like pampas grass, which I don't have on here today. But yeah, yucca, great thing for that kind of dry, arid landscape. It doesn't fit in with a lot of our modern, suburban landscapes, but I've actually seen some recent pictures of these in cottage gardens in the UK. And they'll grow anywhere. And I've seen them mixed with flowering perennials and prairie plants. And it's kind of neat to see these yucca, which will bloom white right around now, being mixed in with all these flowering perennials. So you can actually use this plant in a variety of different ways, and it's kind of exciting to use that blue color. Evergreen and really hardy here in a drier spot. So that's yucca. This is blue-beaked yucca. Color Guard is a really popular yellow one. Adam's Needle. And some of them actually have these little hairs, and I didn't get one in here today. They have little hairs coming off of the leaves, which is another really neat kind of texture quality that yucca can have. So yeah, that's yucca. Put this here. It's going to be difficult today not getting poked, so excuse me, guys. Put Baby Rita over here. Digifofia. I'm going to pull this from the side. We got some quince in yesterday, and we don't get a lot of fruiting quince, and it's not really underplanted, I wouldn't say. But it is a cool niche plant if you're looking for something unusual. See if I can actually get some fruit on there for y'all. This is crimson and gold quince, so this is a thorn fruiting quince. And quince, something that you can get at the grocery store. Most people don't find it palatable. It's really in the apple family. So it's a lot like an apple or like kind of a rough apple. It has seeds on the inside. Traditionally, people would poach these or, make a jam or something out of them. But, these are edible quinces, just like rose hips. Ooh, and there's a thorn. The thorns on these hide right under the leaves. So it's really interesting how this plant has set the thorns up to really be almost as if they're not there. And then whenever you grab that branch, it's right underneath the leaves of this plant. So this is thorn quince. We carry a lot of thornless quince, but, very old-fashioned are these thorn quinces. I have a contorted thorn quince at home, which is really neat. So really cool flowering kind of in the off season, in the cool part of the year. And then this edible fruit that, of course, animals, birds will probably get. Maybe not deer because they won't like the thorns. But yeah, that's quince. Crimson and gold quince. Really neat for kind of like an edible garden or a cottage old-fashioned garden. And what's been kind of poking me over here is this Mahonia. So I'm going to go ahead and get that out of the way. So this is Mahonia, which is a very, very pokey plant, y'all. This is really neat. This is actually an Asian variety, but there are some Mahonia's varieties that grow on the West Coast, Pacific Northwest. So sometimes you can get that kind of rainforesty vibe out of these. But yeah, this is Leatherleaf Mahonia. Very thick, leathery leaves. These things do rather well in a shade garden for an evergreen. But yeah, these, I mean, having to prune these or take care of these plants can really be a nightmare if you're not prepared. I mean, they are very stiff, jagged. It's like a holly, just really upset holly is what it's like. One of the neat things about this plant is they really aren't toxic. There aren't many toxic parts of this plant. Specifically for kids and pets. So, you know, I've had folks use this as like an animal deterrent or, you know, to keep animals or dogs out of parts of your garden bed. And it won't really hurt them if they decide to try to forage on it, even if they would try it all. So, yeah, that's Leatherleaf Mahonia. They will have a yellow flower and then these really neat kind of blueberry racemes that kind of come down in cascades, typically in the fall. So that's Leatherleaf Mahonia, really pokey plant. If you see that in the landscape, you know, enjoy it from a distance. Don't come up and touch it. Not very friendly, but really cool texture, almost tropical. See if I don't poke myself putting this down. All right, y'all. So I do have a barberry here. Most people are familiar with barberry as like the purples and yellows that we see in a lot of these small garden landscapes. And it's a great plant for a low maintenance bed. This is evergreen barberry, not always evergreen here, but this one's called William Penn, and this is doubling up on the thorny quality. So this thing has some pretty nasty thorns all over the branches. I mean, they're just loaded with them. As well as the leaves. So the leaves themselves have thorns on the serrations of the leaves. So there's thorns on the stems and thorns on the serrations of the leaves. You can actually hedge these. I've seen these hedged into, you know, like 4x4 cubes, and it's a really neat look because these leaves will just sit flat, and they are just like the most impenetrable hedge you could imagine. You can also imagine they're not super popular just because of how aggressive they are. You know, maybe it's a liability in a public space having this many thorns on a shrub. But yeah, something you're not going to want to sleep in. That's barberry. They will produce a fruit that birds will pick up, so it does have some wildlife value. And it's kind of a unique plant. They will get kind of a reddish tip as they grow. Again, this one's William Penn. They're kind of just leaning into the thorn factor of this plant. Really neat, unique if you're a plant collector for barberry. Yellow roots on these is kind of a cool feature for barberry. It's just a very unique thing. Unusual evergreen barberry. Just figured I'd show that to y'all. You know, not super popular, but if you're doing like a rock garden, this would be a neat feature. Very unique growth habit, just like the quince. All right. Here's kind of a cutie. Not super pokey, but a little bit. We got these a few weeks ago, and this is Osmanthus. So some people might be familiar with the goshiki or fragrant tea olive. This is actually closely related to goshiki Osmanthus. And this one is called Party Princess. I know, cute, right? Party Princess has extremely small leaves compared to the standard of this species. Usually the leaves are going to be, you know, about 2 inches in size. These things are maybe half an inch long, little bitty baby leaves. You almost need a magnifying glass to see these leaves. So this is a really neat variety that can be used for like bonsai or again a pot or a rock garden. And they do pretty well, also known as false holly because of this leaf that's got some prickers on it. But you can see the leaves are so tiny, those prickers just can't get me. So that's Party Princess, super cute name, super cute little slow-growing specimen shrub. If you're into Japanese gardening or bonsai, this would be a really awesome plant to start with. Just because of that texture, it's got such a little leaf. I could see pruning this back and making it look like a miniature version of the full-size plants. So that is Osmanthus, Party Princess. Really cool little specimen Osmanthus. We got some other ones called Party Lights. These will have kind of a pinky red new growth when they grow, so you get some kind of color variation for this. A little bit pokey, but not too pokey. And I'm back. Just got a couple more plants for y'all. As I'm doing this, I'm thinking of some plants I didn't bring, like roses. That's a real obvious one. Most roses are loaded with thorns, especially the English roses, like David Austin roses. It's almost as if they were bred for you to not prune them. But yeah, roses, obviously. I figured that was a little too easy for today. But I am going to bring back one of my favorites. I've had a lot of luck with this plant, and bonus, it's a native. So this is Eryngium Yucca Folium, or rattlesnake master. And it's called Yucca Folium because it does look like the texture of this yucca I have up here. So it's kind of a false look to the leaf. It's actually in the carrot family. And this is a prairie plant. You see this growing out in the prairies. It's got a really interesting bloom that is spiky as it comes out, and then has some little white flowers in there. And pollinators love this plant. Birds love this plant. And it just does really well in a full sun dry environment. They get tall, so this is for like the center or the back of a perennial prairie bed. I've seen these get 5-6 feet tall, and they'll slowly spread. But again, a native, really cool if you want that blue color. They will stick around through the winter, and they do have these little thorns on the leaves. These are not really going to prick you because they're awfully soft. But with Yucca Folium, you'd expect it to have some prickers on it, and it does right on the edges of the leaf, the margins. So yeah, that's Eryngium, really neat, kind of obscure native that we're starting to get more of. Interesting for the prairie garden there. Give y'all another look at those unique blooms. Yeah, look at that pokey money shot.
Yikes.
All right. I've got one more here for you guys. And again, if you have any questions, just, shoot. We'll address any of your issues here this morning. This is Pyrocantha.
We did have somebody who said, I've been trying to ID a plant for years, and it's Mahonia. Yeah. So you help them figure it out. Yeah,
and it's one you don't see a whole lot, but when you see it, you're not going to forget it. But yeah, Mahonia, there's several species. Beely eyes are a really common one for us. But really cool, tough plant that, probably doesn't get used much nowadays. I think it did a decade or two ago. This is Pyrocantha, which really means like fire thorn in Latin. Pyrocantha has these hidden thorns again, just like the, what we're looking at, the quince. And this has hidden thorns up under these leaves. You really can't see them until you grab one of these branches. So I just got to watch out here. But these do load up with berries in the fall, so this plant kind of has double duty. It is almost like a vine. It's like a vining shrub. You could see it. You can really train these on trellises, on fences, on walls. And traditionally, this would be put up against a wall under a window to discourage climbing or to discourage someone from coming over a wall or a fence. So I've seen these a lot of times put up against brick walls as an ornamental theft deterrent, really. And these are super easy to grow. Very difficult to trim because of these nasty thorns. I'm actually finding one in the middle here. And these thorns can be 2 inches long, sometimes 3 inches, almost like our honey locust trees. So, Pyrocantha, really neat one if you're going for like a traditional, even like a cottage garden or a vintage garden. And these were planted a lot in the 70s and 80s. And they do really well here. And whenever they put berries on in the fall, it's just a really amazing display, either orange or red berries. And just kind of another niche pokey plant. Pyrocantha, very utilitarian, just like a climbing rose. All right, that is all the pokey plants I brought today, and I managed not to get too hurt. And yeah, we just wanted to do a dive into a different topic, something unusual, and just see how y'all like it. Obviously, we could do a deep dive into something else if y'all'd like to know. If you have any webinar suggestions, send them to info@batesnursery.com.
Also, one cool one that Ben has shown me in the past, and I'm sorry that I don't have my camera on right now, is Flying Dragon Hardy Citrus, which grows here.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there is a hardy citrus tree. Flying Dragon is the cultivar, and I wish we had some. They are evergreen, and really it's like ever stem. The stems are green, and they have these kind of twisted green thorns on them. Really a cool plant. Surprisingly, they do really well here, and they have for a long time. I believe they used to get planted as like a fencing alternative on property lines.
Yes.
Like honey locust. I've got honey locust in my backyard, and most of the locust that we carry is a thornless variety, but some of these have 4 or 5 inch thorns. They're really really cool to look at. Bring them inside and put them in a bowl as a conversation piece, those thorns. So yeah, lots of stuff out there if you get looking.
Yep. If you guys have any questions, now's the time. You can chat them out or comment them if you're watching on Facebook. Next week, we're going to have... I don't have my schedule in front of me. Hold on. We just sent the email out this week. Growing, Gone, dealing with houseplant failure. That ought to be fun. And we've all had something die on us, I believe, if you've tried to grow things, and we will dish our best knowledge at mitigating that so things don't die on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's doing that webinar?
That's Caroline Gant.
Okay.
Yes. We got a whole slate of webinars this June. Catch up on tomatoes with Austin Lowen. He's been out of commission lately, but we're excited to welcome him back for this one. And then Meet Me in My Trailer, Trailing Indoor Plants. So another houseplant-centered webinar. We figured we kind of pivot back. We've got a lot of subjects.
Yeah.
And Ben's recent webinars, how to water and also how to plant your landscape, have really been great guides.
And people have been asking me lately, is it still a good time to plant? Going into summer, it's not ideal, but if you are good about watering and you can get a hose out there and you feel confident in being able to check your plant every few days, you can definitely have success planting this time of year. Fall is a great time to plant just because of the cooler weather, but a lot of these plants we looked at today prefer the heat. So, if you're going to do some planting this time of year, just be ready to have your watering wand out, or, pick some real drought tolerant varieties. And yeah, go for it. We'll let you know what you need to succeed. So we'll, ask us questions and we'll help you out so you can get through the summer. Yeah.
All right, Ben. Well, it looks like we don't have any other questions, so we can wrap it up.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today, y'all. Thanks for taking a little left turn with me today into the pokey wilderness of all these funky plants. And y'all have a good rest of your week, and we will see y'all soon. Of all these funky plants, and y'all have a good rest of your week, and we will see y'all soon.